content for teachers to support them in their professional development as well as in their classrooms, and is free of charge and easy to use. In order to access the portal, type firki.co and you will be directed to the Firki website. To register on Firki, fill in a brief registration form. You can also sign in through your Google account. You will have to use your email ID in order to create an account on our website. This account is again free to create and use. Once you create your account and log in with your credentials, you will be directed to the dashboard. The dashboard would have notifications related to your profile, course progress, time spent, and your Firki discussion groups. To access different pedagogical courses, you can click on the courses link on the top left of the screen. The courses page allows you to choose courses based on difficulty level and category. The courses are also available in different regional languages. Feel free to browse the different courses we have in our catalog using the search bar above. Each Firki course is designed using the FITS model that stands for Feel, Imagine, Do, and Share. The Feel section of the course helps you identify your current practices. The Imagine section defines the practices that one should follow to improve teaching and learning outcomes. A detailed description of strategies are highlighted under the Do section that one can implement in the classroom and with their students. At last, the Share section talks about ways in which one can share their learnings with each other. Each course has also a set of reflection questions as part of the assessment section. Along with the course material, each Firki course also contains a learning circle plan and journal pages. A learning circle plan helps the coaches and mentors conducting the offline learning circles to discuss and share learnings from the course. A journal page summarizes the course with important points. We are adding new courses every month, so keep watching this space. Next up, we have the webinars page that is also accessible from the top left of the screen. On this page, you will find information about the upcoming webinars. If you scroll down, you will find a bunch of resources from our older webinars. These resources will include video recordings of the webinar itself, notes from the webinar, the presentation used by our speaker, and other resources on the topic covered. Do feel free to browse this section at your leisure. The final page to look out for is the resources page, also to be found at the top left corner of your screen. This page houses and will house resources from several of our partner organizations, such as the British Council, Khan Academy, Storyweaver, Pratham Books, and more. We are in the process of adding to the list, and you can easily filter resources by partners, grades or standard, and the subject of instruction. We hope you find value in using these resources in your practice as teachers and educators. Finally, you can find the Firki app on the Play Store and can access these courses, resources, and webinars through your phone. So download our app and stay connected to teaching and learning on the go.
Thank you, Bala. I hope the video helped us learn more about Firki. If you have any more questions about any of the features highlighted in the video, please write to us at contact@firki@teachforindia.org. The link will be pasted in the chat box shortly. With that, let's move on to the webinar at hand today. Thank you for taking the time to join us in the discussion. In designing this and other webinars throughout the year, the Firki team is hoping that we can disseminate meaningful knowledge and skills that take us closer to our goal of improving the quality of education in the Indian classrooms. In this webinar, we will explore what does practice in mathematics classroom look like? What is the difference between rote practice and dynamic practice? And what are the pitfalls of using rote practice? Now let me introduce the speaker for the day, Akshay. Hi Akshay, welcome. Akshay was a 2015 Teach for India Fellow. He worked as a program manager with the Delhi program team in the past and currently leads the student outcomes and mathematical support at Teach for India with the Training and Impact team. Mathematics to Akshay is a tool to bring critical thinking and problem solving as skills. It gives him a space to articulate his logical thinking. Over the years, while exploring how to bring problem solving alive in mathematics classroom and how to make it a joyful learning experience, Akshay has found his passion in facilitating for mathematics training. That brings me to the norms for today. Before we start, again, for all the new people who have joined us, we are using a new feature called Phirki Webinars today. This is a learning opportunity for us as well. So please be patient throughout the webinar with this new interface. Given the large audience that we are expecting today, please keep your video and mic off to reduce stress on the bandwidth. Use raise hands features if the speaker asks a question, and one of us will unmute you for the answer. You can keep typing your questions in the Q&A box during the session. The presenters will try and address as many of them as possible throughout the webinar. I will be here to curate all your questions and comments throughout the webinar. Do remember, learning new things is difficult, but challenge yourself. The best way to remember something would be to write it down or discuss your learnings with someone after the webinar. The webinar will be recorded and will be available on the YouTube and Phirki website soon. We also have Anu from my team who will be taking down notes for the session, a summary of which will be made available along with the recording and other resources of the webinar. That brings me to the end of my introduction. Before we go ahead with that brings me to the end of my introduction. Thank you, and we hope you have a very interesting evening. Akshay, welcome, and the space is yours.
Thank you, Mansi. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the space. Let me know if you are able to see my screen. Sure. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Before we start our webinar, would really love for everyone to get a book or a pen along, because today we'll also be practicing some kind of maths problem during our webinar to understand how do students feel and what information do each type of questions that give. So there would be different kinds of questions, like from an elementary point of perspective and also from a secondary point of perspective, so that we can easily touch around at different grades. And before we start, what I would love, till the time everyone is bringing a book and a pen, if it would be great if you could type in your chat, what does the term practice mean to you? So when you hear this term called practice in mathematics, what does it mean to you? Please feel free to type in your responses in the chat. Okay, so I can see people are writing about it's doing, it's exercise, it's revision, it's some kind of action, it's some kind of solving the questions, drill work, practice to drill. Great. So as and when we are moving forward, just keep this word alive and see how is the definition of practice changing for you as and when we explore this word practice in this webinar. Welcome to the webinar. The webinar is about the role of the practice in mathematics classroom. Before I start my webinar, you will see certain keys on the slide. So you'll see two symbols at the bottom of this side. So when you see the first symbol, that's the pen. That means you need to respond to your answers on the chat box. So whenever there's a question, there would be a symbol like this. Please feel free to type in your responses in the chat. And whenever you will see a compass, would love if you can raise your hand and someone from our team will unmute you for 1 or 2 responses from the call. So I'll just give you 10 seconds to gear up for a session, have your copies, and be ready to look out for these navigation signals as well. Great. So today's webinar, as Mansi already shared, we'll be exploring 3 questions. One would be, what does practice in mathematics classroom look like? In this, we'll sort of solve 2 set of problems and identify what is the difference in these set of problems or in these set of questions, and try to unpack what does basically practice mean in mathematics. Once we are done with that, we'll try to understand what are these terms called rote practice or dynamic practice, or what are people referring to as drills or practice in the chat. We'll try to understand what is an advantage of using one and what is an advantage of using other, and when we should use the other. And finally, we'll also try to understand what are some of the pitfalls when we do drills or rote practices. I'll also be sharing certain examples that we have collected over a period of time from different classrooms. I hope everyone is geared up to solve problems as and when I will be flashing the question. I would love everyone to type in your responses in the chat. We'll spend 2 minutes on each question. So you have to count the number of the circles and count the number of the triangles and write in your answers in the chat. 8 and 4. Okay, 8 and 4. Great. So as and when you're also solving like a kid, think about what are the skills you are practicing. I would really love for everyone to start thinking about when you're solving this question, what are the skills you are practicing? Okay, second question. Let's divide these 3 questions. Again, 2 minutes to solve this problem. I can see 20, 36, 3, 20, 36, 3. Great. Okay. We'll wait for 30 more seconds for more responses to come in. Okay. Would love people to also start sharing what are they doing. Like for example, Anusha has already shared that what she did in the first was just counted the number of the symbols that are there. So while you're answering, if you can also share what did you do in the problem in the chat, that would be really helpful. Great. Moving on. Let's gear up and go to grade 6 and think about area of the triangles. When I say length, length means that's height of the triangle. And when I say breadth, it means the base of the triangle. We have responses. Great. Thank you for Divya sharing that you're using the formula half base into height. Great. And the final bit of question, which is around algebraic expression that comes around in grade 8 and 9. What is the value of the equation? So if you solve the equation for x is equal to 20, what would be the answer? As and when you have answered, please make your thinking visible in the chat by saying, I use this formula, I just put x is equal to 20. However you are doing it, would love for you to start putting it down in the chat for others to also see how are you approaching the same way. Okay, great. So when I'm seeing the first question, most of the people said that they're counting. And in the divide one, most of the people said that they're just using the long division method. And in third one, half base into the height is what is the formula that they're using. And finally, they're substituting the value is what I can read, like put value of x or I substitute x or substitution method. That means like everyone is kind of using the same approach to come to a specific answers. Great. Now what we'll do is we'll think about these questions in terms of, would love for everyone to take some time and respond in the chat. What stood out to you about these questions? Okay. So when you're saying, Deepa, you were excited, would love if you can also explain what made you excited. ठीक है, simple to complex, okay, mental calculation, testing different skills, moving from simple to concept, okay, ठीक है, great. And if these are different questions for different concept, what do you think these will enable kids to do? Now think about if you're teaching division, you're using the second question. If you're teaching algebraic expression, you are using the fourth question. What will these questions enable students to do? At this point of time, if two of you want to come off mute, would love for you to raise hand, and one of a person from our team would unmute you for you to let you answer. Okay, so people are saying they're practicing different skills. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I can read very excited to solve problems, develop. Okay, can we have Rachna unmuted?
Hello, good afternoon, Akshay.
Yeah.
I feel if you look at the division questions, then they are of the same type in the sense they all are division, but the divisor is different. So it's like a kind of practice that we are trying to give to our students.
Okay. And what kind of a practice? So what is this question checking? Like if I have to ask you, Rachna.
Whether the student has understood the concept of dividing a two-digit number by a single-digit number.
Okay. I'll push you when you say concept. Is the question really checking the concept, or is it checking the formula of the division, long division method? So when you say the word concept, what do you mean? Like, how is this question checking the concept?
In the sense, if I have introduced two number division, or a two-digit number, which has to be divided by a single digit divisor. Okay.
Yeah.
So once this concept has been taught to them, then maybe like a practice, I have given this exercise to them to now whatever they have learned, they can apply over here and see whether they comprehend, they have understood the method.
Got it. So what they have already learned in the first half, let's say they learned something about division and they're applying that division.
Yeah.
Great.
Exactly.
Thank you, Rachna. Anyone else who would like to share? Okay.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Bandhana from Heritage School, Basantpur. So I would love to say that they are not practicing here. The concept is not building here. They know some of the ways of doing some of the things. So they are just practicing those ways. It is not the concept which they have learned. They know that if I put this number here or this number here, then for this number I have to divide. But if this number they put it inside, then they won't be able to understand. They won't be able to understand that in division we are using factors. In division there are so many other ways. There is a pattern which can be seen in division. And
sure.
Counting skill, then again they are just counting. They don't know what is the hidden behind. They don't know there's an ordinal way of counting. There's a cardinality which is hidden in counting. So they don't know all these things. They are just doing it because they have learned it that way, the way we have learned it in our childhood. So I think this is the only thing which is happening here. They are not practicing anything. They are just, whatever is in their mind, they are just vomiting it out.
Got it. So what I'm getting from what Vandana shared was like these are only like the type of the question where they learned something, they mug up something and they replicate it, but they might not know what is the concept of division. So they just did 10 by 20, 10 by 2, and they're just replicating that by 40 by 2. Okay? So keep these thoughts alive as and when we are watching, we will also solve another set of questions. So we'll also try to differentiate between them. Okay. So if these two were the questions that we have already explored, would love for you to think about how are these similar to the questions that your kids practice in your classroom. So if you're a maths teacher and you're making your kids to practice, how is it similar or different to the type of questions that you practice in your classrooms? Would love people to start typing in the chat box. So I can see it's similar. These are very similar. So I am seeing right now 3 or 4 responses which are saying it's similar. Okay, mostly similar. Okay, great. We'll wait for another 15 seconds for people to put in their responses. Okay, there are some responses which say they are different, they're application based questions. Okay. Okay. So if you're writing in the chat saying you use application based question, would love for you to also explain application based question. Like, what do you mean when you say the term application based question? Okay. So you will add word problems to it. Okay. That's something story type sums. Okay. Application means skill practice. Okay. So maybe I am creating the same question in terms of, let's say, a problem. I can say I have 60 toffees and I gave 20 toffees. How much toffees do I have? So that can be an application based question, but it is again a drill type of a question that someone has mentioned in chat. Great. Okay. Now let's move on to the next set of questions, and we'll spend a little more time in trying to solve these questions. And then again, we'll also think about the same thing in those questions and see what's the similarity and what's the difference between them. Okay. Now this time what you have to do is you have to represent 50 divided by 8 in 4 of the forms. You can do it in different forms as and when you like. Like you can write down in the chat, like what are the different forms you can do 50 by 8 or represent 50 by 8. If you're there, would love a response from you as and when you have thought about at least 2 of the different ways. Okay, so I can read, draw 50 stars and make group of 8. Okay, that's one way. Others are mathematical way of saying 5 into 20 by 8. Okay, that's number sense. Great. I can also read that 6 whole and 1 by 4. That's also one of the representation. Okay. And then another number way of would be 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 by 4 into 2. Okay. Great to see responses on the chat. Simple division is one of the way to go forward with. Okay, so some people are grouping it, some people are breaking the number in the number sense, some of them are representing in the form of a decimal, and some people are also using same number sense but using in different number representation. Repeated subtraction, that's also one of the ways to represent. Okay. Let's wait for 30 more seconds and then we can move ahead. Great. Thank you for your responses. So there are more than 4 ways to represent it, but one of the students copy, I just copied it and just put it. So these can be the 4 different ways in which the student can answer in addition to different ways that you have already told. So it can be either by grouping them and making dots and showing their representation, that it can make groups of 8 and then 2 would be left, or it can be boxes like representation of boxes and there would be two sides of the box left, and then it can be in a form of a story, or it can be in a form of long division method. Great. Okay. So these are 4 different ways in addition to what you have done. Again, saying that this is not limiting to this answer and these are only 4 ways. Now let's jump into the next question. Okay. So there is a rabbit called Leo. He is climbing 10 steps. So he has to climb 10 steps ahead. Leo can only climb 1 step ahead or 2 steps ahead. He cannot come back in any way possible. So how many different ways can you see that Leo can hop up the 10 number of flights? Okay, as and when you're sharing, write down your justification on the chat also with different possible combinations that are there. Okay, so you can use a number line, but what are the different combinations that the total will be 10? Okay, so Vandita says 2, 2, 2, 5 times. If you jump 2 steps, it's 10. You get 2 hops for 5 steps. Okay, so the question is how many ways Leo can jump to 10 steps if he can jump 1 step ahead or 2 jump ahead. Okay, so someone says he can jump 10 times if he jumps 1 step ahead. Okay. 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 So different combinations are 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2. Okay. That also adds up to 10. Okay. Can we have 2 people off mute to share how did they come up to an answer? Or even if 1 person would be great. So if you want to an answer right now, just raise your hand. Hi, Nitish. Nitish, would you like to share your response? How did you come up to the response? Okay, if we have someone else can share.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a problem which can lead to the Fibonacci sequence.
Okay.
So if you start with just 1 step,
Okay.
there is 1 step. So you can do it only with a 1 hop.
Okay.
Now, so for 2 steps, you can do it either with 2 1 hops or 1 2 hops. So there are 2 ways.
Okay.
Then for the 3rd step, either you can have a 2 step from the 1 step or 1 step from the 2 step. So for every way that you can do the 1 or 2, so this, if you do it stepwise, you will see you will get the sequence 1 1 2 3 5 8 like
Sure.
that. So it will
Sure.
lead to a Fibonacci sequence. So for 10 steps, there
Sure.
would be 89 ways to do it because that's the
Okay.
10th term of the Fibonacci.
So right now we are not thinking about how many ways it can be done. Like let's start thinking about, so there can be 89 different ways. What would we love is, can you tell me 2 different or 3 different ways right now? Thinking,
yeah, okay.
I don't know Fibonacci series.
No,
Yeah.
because the question said how many different ways can Leo hop up the flight of 10 steps. So
yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Answer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Sabyasachi, if out of 89 ways, can you tell me one of those ways?
So the first obvious ways would be 10 steps of 1 each.
Okay, 10 steps of 1 each.
Or 5 steps of 2 each. Those are the 5 2 steps, 5 times 2 steps. Right.
Okay. And how did you come up with this answer?
So because 10, I looked at, okay, wow, 10, just the simplest way is that 1 step, so 1 times 10 is 10 and 2 times 5 is also 10. Those are the simplest ways to look at it. But then when I think of other ways, one can move up to 8 steps by 1 each and then a jump of 2, or 4 steps of 2 each and then 2 jumps of 1 and all that. So if you consider all the possibilities, then it would be 89. But just the simplest would be 10 steps of one each and or 5
Sure.
steps of two each.
Sure. So you used addition to do different types of like combinations in order to get 10. Okay. One more response and then we'll move ahead. Yeah.
Hello, Akshay.
Yeah.
Actually, I just went down to the student level of just keep counting two steps because it happens usually in school. Students just leave one step and move on to the other while climbing the stairs.
Okay.
So that's the reason the first thing it came to my mind was two steps, 2 hops into 5 steps. So that's the reason how I reached the answer.
Great.
So
Thank
thinking
you
to
for
the
sharing
students
that.
level is more important.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So a student can think about how do they climb up, like if they jump one step while coming from the break to the classroom. So they'll say, okay, I jumped 2 steps. Let's make Leo also jump 2 steps. So they can also come with that way, and then your possibility can be 2 into 5 time hop. Great. We'll now pause this question and we'll move ahead with another set of question or another question, which is, again, it's basically area. So I'm giving you the area of the rectangle is 64 centimeters square. What are the possible combination of its length and breadth be? It would be great if you can tell me what are at least 5 different combinations. Eight and 8, 32 and 2. Okay. Okay. As and when you're answering, again, would love 2 people to come off mute and share their thoughts of how did they come to different combinations. So if you want to answer, you have to raise your hand.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Gandhimati from Coimbatore. Here, I think the children will use the multiplication table, the property of factors.
Okay.
They can first come out with the fact from the smallest number 1 into 64, then 2 into 32, then 4 into 16, then 8 into 8, all possibilities. Further, if it is more than class 6, 7 or 8, they may analyze on the answer whether it is a rectangle or not. When it comes to the point of 8 by 8 is a rectangle or square, like that they may think,
Sure.
analyze on the answer.
Sure. So you're saying that you will start with table of 1, like factors of 1, 1 into 64, then you will see 2, and what is 2 into 32 is the combination, and then going on increasing. Thank you so much, Gandhi. One more response.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Akshay. Okay, so
Hi.
I was thinking that the kids could simply take 64 and prime factorize it and then just
Okay.
make different combinations from the factors that they get there.
Okay. So
yeah.
using prime factorization. So if a kid knows prime factorization, he can just do prime factorization and come to different combination. If he knows table, he can do this by the approach that was told earlier. Great. Okay. And again, if he knows divisibility, he can start dividing by 1 and go till 64 to find as many as possible combinations. Great. Okay. So I'm also seeing different versions of the answers on the chat. Thank you for those responses. Now, finally to our last question. So the last question is a combination of 3 sets of questions, and it would be a little tricky. Let's try this out. So would love for you to start thinking about how do you see this pattern growing? If you are able to write that in chat, it's great. But what we'll do here is we'll take 1 or 2 responses and try to share a different approach. So if you have a different approach from one already shared, then please raise your hand versus the same approach. Would love as many approaches of seeing how are people seeing this pattern growing. So would give 15 seconds. And once you can see, you can raise your hand. Okay, we have someone.
Hi, Akshay.
Hi.
So in every figure, we are seeing there's an increase of one mode level. So in the first figure, there's one, then in the next, there are two rows.
Okay.
Third figure is three, and so on. So,
okay, so you are saying one row is increasing. So it has one increase. It has this one increase. It has this increase. So the row is increasing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so in the kind of first has only one row, then second figure is two rows. So vertically you can see there's an increase in rows.
Got it. Like,
yeah.
Okay, great. Someone else who has a different approach.
Hello.
Yeah, Nilesh.
Huh, sir. Sir, first square is 1 square.
Okay.
Then 1 plus 3 square, that will come 2 square.
Okay, so you did 1 plus 2, 3 square. Okay.
Then 1 plus 3 plus 6, that will come. Sorry, 3 plus 6, second plus 3 plus 6, that will be.
Got it, 6. Okay. So you take the number of squares and that you are seeing the pattern.
The square, yes.
Great. Okay. Someone else who has a totally different approach to what Purvi and Nilesh already shared.
Hello, Akshay.
Yeah.
Can we say the first one as 1 into 1, 1. The second one as 1 into 2.
Okay.
Third one as 1 into 3.
Okay.
Sorry. 1 into 1, 1. The second one as 2 into 1.
Okay, 2 into 1.
The third one as 3 into 2.
3 into 2. Okay. But how is the pattern growing? So there is a different pattern. So it's 1 into 2.
I mixed something. Sorry.
Okay. So you take your time and then think about it, and then we'll give you another chance for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem. So one more person who can share different approach.
Hello.
Yeah.
This is Hiranya. So
Hi.
as we see that this is a sum of an AP. So in the first one, it is one box. And the second one, it is 1 plus 2. Third, 1 plus 2 plus 3. Then 1 plus 2 plus 4. This is how the AP is growing, right? So it is as simple as that we study n by 2, 2a plus n minus 1d formula of AP that we can compute it and figure out for any number of squares.
Okay. So while right now you're thinking about how the pattern is going, I will right now ask you not to think about the formulas. Like, think about as a kid who doesn't know what an AP is. Like, when you see these pictures, how do you see the pattern growing? So for example, one of the pattern is 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2 plus 3. Another is seeing this red side being added every time. The another way is, I'll show how I see it. I see this line, diagonal line. The number of box increases and it's get added. So there is no diagonal line 0. Okay? So there is one diagonal line of 2 boxes. There are one diagonal line of 3 boxes, one diagonal line of 4 boxes. So I see the pattern growing diagonally. Okay? One last response, if anyone would like to share. Okay, so if I'm reading on the chat, someone says adding one here, adding one here. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
School के teachers पूछ रही हैं.
Yeah.
To every like if you look at the first box,
okay,
there's one box, so you are
Yeah.
adding two boxes at the bottom. Then in the second figure, there are two boxes vertically, so you are adding three boxes at the bottom to the same figure.
Okay, so you are seeing this picture go up and things
Yeah, fitting
added at the bottom.
like Legos, you know. If you look
Great.
at from a kid's point of view,
Yeah.
not thinking mathematically or
Yeah.
numerically.
Yeah, yeah. See, great. So these are the point of views where you can think how these are growing as different patterns. Now, considering that you have your own way of seeing the pattern, it's not necessary that everyone sees the pattern growing in the same way. Now, if I have to ask you moving forward, how many squares do you think the figure 10 will have? And how do you know that that would be number of the squares that the figure 10 will have? Would love people to write this response in the chat. Some says it is 10, some says it is 55. So Anubhav, Sanjuta, when you says it's 55, would you also tell how do you come up with 55? So Purvi said it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. So I love how you're using your approach that you come up in the first question and just putting it to a 10th value. Okay. Great. So people who are using right now n, think about if your kids don't know n. So that's why it becomes very difficult when you directly jump to a number n from 1. People might not visualize it because 10 is easily visible versus an n. Okay, so I see 1, 3, 6, 10 plus 15. Great. Okay. So while you're also thinking about the 10, now my next question would be, let's say we don't know the number, which case we want. For any case, what would be the number of the squares that would be present in the figure? Now you can use your representation of n, where n means any case, whether it's figure 1, whether it's figure 100, whether it's figure 2000. So people are using as n into n plus 1 by 2. Okay, so n plus 1. Great. So I'm loving people are not only writing the formula, they're writing their approach when they're saying they saw n plus 1, n plus 2, because they saw the figure also 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 4. Great. Okay, Nilesh says it's n square. Okay. Someone says it's n square plus 1 by 2. Great. Okay. Thank you for engaging with these problems. We'll pause these problems and I'll again post few questions back that we discussed a little earlier. Now, if I have to ask the same question, what stood out to you about these questions? So when you're saying challenging, would love to explain more. What does challenging mean? Analysis about pattern. Okay. Complexity. Okay. No fixed formula is required. Great. Thinking differently. Okay. Try to find some pattern and then come up. Logical thinking, critical thinking. I think people have already moved to the next questions. I will pose that also. What will these question enables the student to do? If you were saying in the last questions, people were just saying that people might need to use the formula, but what will these set of questions help you do? Not boring. Okay. Critical thinking, analysis and apply. Okay. So for people who were saying the concepts were tested in the first set of questions, I would again pose that question like, now if I have to ask you, which set of questions do you really think were testing the concepts and why do you think so? And for this question, I will ask everyone again to write right now on the chat only. So actual doing versus solving. Okay. Okay, generalization, and then okay, the first one was about rote learning. These are very open-ended question. Okay. So there is no one fixed way of doing. There might be one answer, but there might not be one fixed way to do them. It helps you visualize. Great. Now if I ask you this question, how are these similar or different to the questions that you use in the plan to practice in your math set? So in the last set, I saw majority of you saying similar, some of you said different. But now if I'm posting this question again to you, how are these set of questions same or different to what you practice in your classroom? Different. Okay. It's okay. Like someone has said sad, smiley, and different. Like there is no correct set of questions which you practice. Everything which you practice is fine, but there's always new ways to use those in practice. Okay. People are saying they use questions from the textbook. Okay, great. Now, for the next question, I would really love for everyone to think deeply, and then maybe I'll take 2 responses off mute. If I have to ask you what was similar and different about the 2 set of questions, I'll quickly tell you something. So this was set A and this was set B. If you see set A is counting of numbers, set B, my first question is also counting of numbers. If you see the second question, it talks about division. Represent 50 by 8 is also division. So from a designer perspective, what I wanted to tell you, the concept that these 2 questions are testing is similar. That's what I'm telling you right now. And the question that I'm posing to you is, how are these 2 questions similar or different? So would love for people to write in the chat box, but 2 of you to raise your hand and we can have you on the call to have responses. Set B is thought provoking. Set A is practice. Okay. Set B is open-ended. Second set is more relatable, practical, promotes thinking versus rote learning. Okay. So we have someone on call.
Yeah. So what we usually do in classes is we give the formula first and then we go on to the word problems. That's the usual trend followed. But this is, you're starting the other way. So you're starting with like an example, which would make people think, and then they try to figure out how they are doing it. Great. So we're just inverting what we usually do in class, which is good.
Sure. Thank you, Archana, for sharing that. So what it is I'm not giving any specific method for you. So even if you know formula of division, it's great. You go and put that in one representation. But I'm still asking you, what do you understand by difference division? If you only know that formula, you will not be able to represent in those 4 forms. Okay. One more response.
Hello, Akshay. I usually use these concepts in my class, methods in my class as an open-ended questions. Yeah. And I try that I never give the formulas in the starting because I would like the students to get into the formula rather the teacher giving the formula. Yeah. That is the reason B is open-ended, and I usually follow such type of questions in the class. Can I just give a small example to you if you give me a minute?
Yeah. Arsha, what I would also love is if you can add, because since you're telling that you're practicing B, so can you also share how has it helped in your classroom if you use set?
Yes, sure. Actually, the thing happens is usually the students find difficult doing division. They have a thing in the mind that division, it's very difficult. So to make it easier, I didn't start with division topic, but I gave chocolates to them. I never said the word division while starting my session. I gave a set of chocolates, like 25, and there were 6 in a group, and I asked them to divide themselves. So they took time checking how much will each one get equally and how much will be remaining, because every time they start giving with 3, and sometime it was remaining, or sometime it was happening that one of their friend was getting 1 less chocolate or 1 more chocolate. So then they came to a situation that, ma'am, everyone is getting 4 and 1 is remaining in the end. So at that time they came to a conclusion that when 1 is remaining, that's a remainder, and 4 will be the question, the number of chocolates that the students are getting. So that is how they came to a conclusion that division is not actually just dividing, but the thing is you are dividing things and it's not very much difficult.
Sure. Thank you, Arsha, for sharing it.
Thank you so much.
So as in already shared also, right? Like what you also need to understand that when you're teaching someone, they might not know the word what is division, but they might know the skill of how to divide. They might not know the way, the formula that it's in the textbook, but during their practice or during their daily life, they might have come up with different ways to do it. So for example, in question number 3, right? If you see in the first set of question, it's talk about the area. So I really need to know half into base into height, that's all. So what I'm checking is just formula and multiplication. But in my second case, I'm also checking their understanding of the formula. So if they know length and breadth, can they come up with different combinations? So they really need to think about a 64 being broken down into different combination, and that's where their length and breadth formula will also be tested, that concept would be tested. Okay. With that, we'll move forward. And so we practice some kind of a maths, like some kind of maths in the session. So as and when we will move forward, we will put names to these kind of practice. What is the first set of question called and what is the second type of practice called? So there are 2 types of practice, and this is based on thinking mathematically. Like there's different terms that people choose to call. So some people call rote practice as doing drills, doing same thing over and over again. And some call dynamic practice as practice where people get their own chance to do. So let's see what is basically the difference between rote practice and dynamic practice. Then we'll think about whether set A was rote practice, whether set B was rote practice, and try to connect to what we've done. So the goal of rote practice is you master the basic skill. That means you memorize the formula. If I tell you that in addition 2 plus 2 is 4, you will count 2 fingers, 2 fingers, 2. Every time you give 6 plus 4, one will count 6 fingers, then will count 4. So they will memorize that drill and they will do that drill versus you're not sure whether the concept of addition has been mastered or not. Versus in a dynamic, you will see you need to apply facts, rules, formulas also, which you have learned. Also, it helps you applying, not only understanding what addition is, but also applying that case. Now, in the first rote learning, usually the questions are pen and paper and they follow procedures. In the dynamic practice, there are concept and procedures. They can also be activities. There can also be sense making. Like since it was a webinar, we are doing pen and paper, which is also sometimes it's easier to do pen and paper, but how can we do rote practice and dynamic practice also with the pen and paper versus saying only rote practice can happen in pen and paper? Then if you see what were the students doing, the student in the rote practice does no role. They just have to, they don't have to apply their thinking. They were taught some formula, they use that formula, that's all that's need to be done. But if you see in a dynamic practice, what ends up happening is student used to really think and make decision. So it's their decision, which pattern they're following, which combination they're coming. They have to justify that combination also. Why in a Leo's problem, you have used 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Why not 1, 1, 1, 1? So someone needs to think through different combination, but also justify that. And the process is in the first one, rote learning is you practice same kind of textbook problem for your children and they use the same formula over and over again. Same kind of question number 1, question number 2. But in dynamic practice, it's more of a playful experience because I'm not saying today we'll do division. I'm not throwing big words that people might be afraid of. So that's something, there's an element of choice for you to do. So as someone wrote in the chat that there are multiple approaches. So you have choice to which approach you find it useful versus saying, no, this is the approach I have taught you. This is what you need to use. So how can your practice have decision making and different ways in which people have their student have their own option to show their thinking visible. Now I leave that for 10 seconds for if you want to make notes. The PPT anyways will be available for you, but in order to grasp it, I'll leave there for 10 seconds before moving forward. So there's a question that says, depending on the topic lesson, will the combination of rote dynamic? That's a great question. I would say how our curriculum are currently designed, there might be a combination that you choose to do. I would recommend to do more of dynamic practice. But if you still think that there is a formula that's required, there can be some kind of rote practice. I'm not saying rote practice is wrong, don't follow that. But then you need to have a proper combination of when are you doing your rote practices and when are you doing your dynamic practice. But the recommendation would be to do more of dynamic practice. Okay. Now quickly in the chat box, this is now easier for you to identify, is set A rote practice or set B rote practice, and which is dynamic practice. So let's label A and B into rote practice or dynamic practice. I see people start writing set A is rote, set B is dynamic. Okay. So everyone is kind of aligned to what is rote and dynamic practice. And I hope that you have little clarity on what are the different types of practices in the questions that can be done. So at this point of time, if you have questions, I would love for you to also go into the Q&A questions to start posting the questions that are coming up to you. So once we are ending this in like next 10-15 minutes, I'll also address those questions. So at this point of time, I'll wait for 1 minute. If you have certain questions, go to the Q&A box and post your questions, whatever is coming onto your mind. Okay. So as and when we are moving forward, feel free to write your questions in chat or in the Q&A section. That would be really helpful for me to also answer. Let's move into the advantages and disadvantages. So I'll just quickly flash what is the advantage of using a rote learning. So someone asked, which questions do we use? Do we use balance? I think this will help you to make that choices. So the advantage of rote learning is it helps you to quickly recall certain facts. So when you want people to recall facts in certain very formula based concept, then it's good to use rote practice. And also fundamental knowledge like a table, when people need to learn tables, that's fundamental knowledge. A drill would be better or a rote practice would be better. But the disadvantage is it's same repetitive and hence the kids might lose focus. It doesn't allow you to push deeper thinking. So if you see in the first set of question, I was only taking answers, but I couldn't ask how you doing, how do you do, because everyone was saying I'm using the same formula. But in the second set of questions, I had more to push deeper thinking by saying, okay, how did you do that? How did you come to an answer? And also make connections between what they already know. So someone was telling, I've learned factors and that's why I'm using it in the area. So you also make connections and you might not get the correct impression of concepts. So if a kid is saying 50 divided by 4 is to a certain answer, like let's say 10 divided by 2 is 5. I am not sure if we really understand the concept or if you have understood the formula. So that's little disadvantages of rote learning. Again, 10 seconds for the slides to be here. As and when I am talking or when you're reading, please put your thoughts on the chat as well. What is you liking about it? What is resonating? What you're learning when you're reading about these things? Dynamic practice on other round encourages understanding, not memorizing. We've already experienced that. It encourages active learning techniques. It helps us to relate to the new information. obviously like, everything has advantage and disadvantage. It might need a little bit more effort from your end, and it might take a little longer to achieve. So if the first question, like the rote practice question, take you 10 minutes to solve in the classroom, this might need maybe 20 minutes of practice in your classroom. So you need to give more time to it. And again, like it may be tailored to learners' need. Like someone was saying that if the kids' learning need is kinesthetic, if the kid learn through moving around, so you might need to create an activity versus paper and pen. So these are some way where your efforts might go in, and hence it's put as a disadvantage. But if you see from a learner perspective, it's an added advantage. With this, we come to an end of our second objective, and I'll finally show you what are the pitfalls of rote practice. Again, pause for 10 seconds for people to write questions in the chat or the questions in the Q&A section. Moving forward, so I'd like you to focus on the screen right now. There's a shape that will be shown. I would love for everyone to just take a guess of what is the shape. So as and when the shape comes in, just quickly write it down versus taking too much to think about what's that shape. So the shape is on the screen. Would love for people to write on the chat box. Okay, so people are saying polygon. What polygon it is? Okay, some are saying closed figure, some are saying polygon, one said hexagon, some is saying closed figure. Someone is saying it's trapezium plus rectangle plus triangle. Great, you have broken down and seen the combination. Someone is saying it's a tessellating shape. Someone is saying it's an heptagon. Someone is saying it's a hexagon. Okay. So let's see, it's an irregular hexagon. Okay, it's a 6-sided figure. It's a text bubble. Great. Let's see what is this shape. So I'll also show you when the students were asked the name of the figure, the shape is actually hexagon. If you count, it has 6 sides, but most of them were unable to do. And the reason behind that is we've always seen hexagon in the textbook and are in a practice questions as the one on the right. So as and when kids practice, they see the hexagon in the same way. And maybe you would have also seen hexagon in the same way. And that's why it sometimes gets difficult because you haven't seen hexagon in the left way. But it's also a 6-sided polygon. And this is one of the ideas of rote learning. How are we changing the shapes? I'll give you more examples. So 11-year-olds were asked, and these are all the data that I've taken from Mathematical Mindsets from Joe Bola. So, and you would have also experienced in your classroom. So when kids were asked, is line A parallel to line C? And these are 11-year-old kids, that's in grade 6 and 7 when you learn this concept. Most of them said no, because the line B is coming in the middle. Hence A is not parallel to B. And it is because we have always used this example on the right side to show parallel lines. And hence sometimes we so much see that these are the parallel lines we might not be able to see on the left. I'm sure like you have so many examples from your classroom where you would be like, why isn't the kid getting these are parallel lines? It's because they have not been shown a lot of parallel lines in a different way. And at this point, you can also start thinking about like, are you also finding that difficult? Maybe because we also practice, like as growing up, I did a lot of rote practice. For me to identify that hexagon, I thought it's a Pikachu, a Pokemon, but I couldn't figure out it's an hexagon. And final example, this is very easy, very common example. So if you see 8-year kids were asked, what are these? Like, this is a right angle triangle, a square, a triangle. None of them were able, like most of them were not able to identify that because we've always seen square, right angle, and a triangle in this way. So once you tilt it, hence the kid might not say the same triangle is in the same way, like is not a triangle. And I'm sure you would have experienced this in your own classrooms. So these are certain pitfalls or certain way in which a brain get channeled to certain kinds of symbols, and hence it's very easy and very simple to change the shapes, and hence I would recommend to do more of a dynamic practice. Now, knowing more about, you have practiced rote learning, you have practiced dynamic experience, dynamic practice in this call, you have learned about rote practice and dynamic practice, you've seen the pitfalls. The question that I would now ask you at the end of the webinar is, what do you think are the pitfalls of using rote learning? So it can be from the learning of what you learned today or from your experience. Feel free to type in your responses in the chat box. One-dimensional thinking. It's not useful for a long time. Making maths board and mechanical application is less. Okay. Loving in the responses. As in when you're thinking from the student side, also think from your own lens, like when you were as a student in this webinar and when you were interacting with the two sets of questions. How did you experience the two sets of questions, and hence what are the pitfalls of rote practice? Okay, I'll wait for another 30 seconds for people to respond. Okay, with this, I will just close our learning, and these are the things that you keep in mind when you practice or when you design a practice for your student. Is your practice leading to procedural fluency? Are the kids able to master the skills and the formula that's required? Because unfortunately right now our system assess in that way. So I'm not saying procedural fluency is not important. Your practice needs to have some kind of procedural fluency, and as and when grades get higher, there are certain chapters which would need those. In addition to procedural fluency, are your kids also understanding the concept? Are they able to comprehend those mathematical concepts that they learn? The third factor is, are you giving them the choice to make their own decisions, or you're making questions such that they are very formula based and they're using that formula? The only decision they have to make is, I will use this formula, versus can they use their own logical thinking? Can they justify what they have done? And finally, I would say, can they use strategic competence? That means, can they formulate or represent the problem that they are? So if there is a word problem, are they able to tell you in their own way or in their own representation of what is that formula or what is that problem means? So when I show these 4 things on the slide, it doesn't mean that your practice should have one component. What the recommendation is, a dynamic practice have all these 4 components in the practice slide. Okay, again, for 10 seconds, I will leave it here for people to make notes. And with this, I would conclude the webinar, and we'll open the floor for question. For people who want to reach out, there's a contact email ID on the screen. Mansi.
Thank you so much, Akshay. Thank you so much, Akshay. We've had so many questions. We will start with, one second. How do I frame these questions to let the students think in their own way? I came across these on the YouCube website. I'm still wondering if I could convert the regular questions to open-ended ones.
Got it. So I would say one of the resources is YouCube. How do you frame it? I would say is, in YouCube also they have full way of telling how do you introduce it. I would say there is no different way to introduce it. If you're teaching a division concept, the only thing is you just put the question in front of the kids. Like I didn't frame something, I just told you represent how do you want to do it, division in different ways. And if I have to ask you, how can you make your normal question in different ways? I would say, if we'll explore our NCERT books as well, there are small boxes which we tend to leave and say, oh, this is an activity, might be this is not. Those are the questions that are actually practice questions. I would say, even if you're not going to a UCube, how are you using your textbook in a way that you're not skipping those questions? So those would be there.
Great. Thank you so much. There are a few questions about the practical use of this method in secondary classrooms, higher classrooms. People have said this method is easy to follow in primary classrooms. How can this be adapted in higher classes? Can you give specific examples?
Great. So I'll just share my slide again. And that's why I use this example. 1 second. Slide visible. Let's go to this question. Okay? The idea here is with such very simple logic of pattern recognition. I move from saying what is the pattern from 1 to 4. Everyone in the class can see 1 to 4. It's easy to visualize on the screen. Then I say something that's more constant, that is 10. I give them a jump of 10 and say what is in the 10. They make some kind of a relation, like what people were doing were saying that first is 1, they say 1 plus 2, then they say 1 plus 3, then they say 1 plus 2 plus 3, 4, 5. Now, when you go to 10, similarly, I just introduce by saying, okay, number can be anything. Let's say n, right? So when I now introduced a variable, which is a higher grade concept, kids won't get confused about what is a variable versus I enter the classroom and I say, today we will learn about a number called n, and kids get confused by saying, but n is an alphabet. It's not a number. What is it doing in math? So those are the concepts. So if you'll see, these are the concept. Another example that I use it from the secondary classroom was, how do you just change the question you ask? Like for a 64. So we usually tend to give up by saying length is 8, breadth is 60, find the answer. But how am I making those questions in the textbooks also changing? So I saw someone has written, how can you make polygon also? So I would say just go on YouTube or internet. There are examples, but if I'll start doing concept wide, it might take another webinar to do one concept of how do you teach polynomials in this way. But there are resources and you can use those resources in the secondary also.
Great. Thank you. The next question is, where can we find dynamic questions for certain concepts or chapters, or how can we turn concepts from our curricula into dynamic questions?
Yeah. So again, Ashwath has already shared a link of UCube task. I would say that's a site where you will have all the resources and questions. You just have to go there, put in the concept that you are teaching, you will have those questions. Second, I already told you in your books, you have your activity type questions. Or if I have to say, if you want to go to online, international board, like use their textbooks, they have these kind of questions. So you can easily go and research in Google, and these are certain links. Ashwath has already shared again YouTube, where you can find concept from grade 1 till grade 10.
Great. Doesn't mathematical practice also involve understanding the question, reasoning, communicating, etc.?
Yeah. So practice do involve. I say it's not only about practice. It's the whole maths classroom. The maths classroom has 10 basic principles. So it's maths communication, maths vocabulary. So I wouldn't say only practice require it. I would also use this platform to say, if you want to explore those 10, there's this Firki session, Firki course, maths course 2, that talks about these 10 principles. So please go and explore what are these 10 principles that needs to come alive in a maths classroom versus only saying in a practice. So I wouldn't limit into practice, but in a full classroom. So Maths course 2. It's there on Friki. Just go and explore at least those 10 principles.
That makes sense. Akshay, would like to make a request of you. If you can see on your panel, there's a Q&A feature.
Yeah.
When you open it, you would see questions.
Okay, okay.
There's an answer live feature. If you could click that and answer each question. See.
Okay, I can't see answer live, but I can see, I can see some questions. So I'll just go through questions and then quickly see what are the trends and then maybe put together versus answering each question. So there is again different set of, like one set of questions that people are asking to me is, what is the correct balance? I would really, as I already said, that there is no correct balance. There is no formula which I can tell you. Ideally, in an ideal classroom, if you want me, I can recommend doing 100% kind of dynamic practice question. But I would say based on the concept that you're teaching, based on the assessment of your board, of your school, based on where your kids are, as a teacher, you need to keep this trying by, let's say, 50% rote and 50% dynamic, and then move towards dynamic practice to also see how are kids learning. So it will depend upon your classrooms. So if you're asking which comes first, should you do the dynamic or the rote, it's again up to you. How do you want to do it? Like, that's up to you. But remember, there are certain cases where where rote learning will have their pitfalls. Okay. When to give rote practice and when to give questions of dynamic practice. Once you introduce the concept, you give questions of practice. It's not about when do you give it. So whenever you're practicing in your classroom, I taught a division. I will give questions whether it is rote or dynamic practice. So your practice wouldn't change. Your practice time wouldn't change. The only thing what's happening in the practice would change. The question in the practice would change. So someone has asked, how can we make dynamic type questions online? Like these are already available. You can just make it on your own also, like on a slide. So these are all pictorial. If you have an activity also, I would recommend if you can write that story or if you can write that activity and give it to your students, maybe not on a Zoom call, maybe on an email, so that what you can do it is kids can record that activity and send you that activity by saying, I did this and this is how I did it. So what you then would do in an online case would be, you will go through the videos of the kids to see how are they learning the concept by doing that activity, and maybe later on just check it with different people. Okay, so where do we find balance? Again, the same question between dynamic and rote learning, but it says exams mostly have rote questions and the kinds appear in the textbook right now. Okay, okay, so this is something, don't take as a law of the land. This is my own idea and my own recommendation. I honestly feel in an elementary grade, everyone should practice only dynamic practice because that builds in the concept. In a middle school, that is your 6 to 8, ideally in your classrooms, you need to do dynamic practice only when you're revising. Let's say your concepts are done, you're revising for examination. Maybe that's the time when you want to do rote learning because your kids are strong hold of the concept, and for examination, you are making them revise those formulas and giving up that. And for a 9th and 10th, I would say you need to have a balance of concept of procedural, that is like rote and dynamic questions as well. And I can give you an example because we tend to practice a rote learning time. Let's say in a 9th grade, the question or the concept that's taught is volume. what we end up doing is tell kids, this is the length, this is the breadth, this is the height, what is the volume, and we keep on using the word volume. But what ends up happening in the paper also, there's a question says, what is the capacity of the room? What ends up happening is kids are not able to relate, oh, capacity means volume, because either in the classroom I told them that, or I only use the word volume. Hence, in a 9th and 10th grade, it's also important to balance rote versus dynamic in that case.
There is also this great question, Akshay, which says test students on math concepts in higher grades through dynamic practice. How do we create questions that ensure dynamic practice, but also test students on content and rigor?
Okay. So for content and rigor, I would say that's where that it will not be there on the copy. Like your exercise copy or your activity only will have answers. The way to assess whether the kids are learning or not is making their thinking visible. That's why it's very important for kids to say, how did you approach to this problem? Can you make that thinking visible either by saying it, like in this call, people were writing in the chat. So kids can write in their notebooks in an online platform. They can also show it by clicking a photo or by only telling it in like in an audio form also. But it's important if you really want to understand if they have understood the concept, if they have not understood the concept, to think, to get to know what is in their head. Because if you just look at the answer, that can be just by mistake, or so you are not 100% sure the right answer means the right concept. So making thinking visible is really, really important in that case.
Thank you. Another question is, for 10th grade, for grade 10 classroom, we are preparing students for the boards. How do we integrate dynamic practice with our teaching?
Sure. So that's what I was saying, like you need to have a balance. And when you're teaching one of those concepts, it's important when you're doing, like in your homework, when you're giving them 20 questions of doing the same kind of question. So in your classroom also, you're giving them 20 questions to practice. You're giving them as an homework. Can you change one place where they can practice different kind of a question? So for example, I have right now in my head, there is no higher order concept, but if you see, it would be more relatable. In the PPT itself, I was giving 3 questions of divide versus I will give only 1 question of divide and say, how can you do it in 4 ways possible? So versus giving 4 same type of question, can I give the same question and ask him to do it in different ways so that I know that the concept has been mastered or not? One question, I think something I got, I would like to respond was around, just a second, I just. Yeah, Mansi, if you have something.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think your methods would work with ELLs? I'm guessing that means first time English language learners.
Yeah.
I mean, teaching ESL or EFL, say, to young learners. Thank you.
So I think that the problem in that whole thing would be understanding English. My only thing that will change is I will give my instructions in the native language, which they are okay. So instead of posing Leo can hop, I would say ek khargosh tha, ek khargosh ek kadam aage kudega ek khargosh. And that's why what also helps is like when I will make them go through the activity or a process, it's easier to pin that term. Okay, what you just did now is called addition or is called factors. So kids in their own language did that activity, but I introduced the term versus saying, okay, addition is adding 2 terms. Someone who is not able to comprehend English might not able to ever understand what is addition versus they might not know addition, right? So for example, Mansi, I give one kid 100 rupees and say, buy chips. He will always go and buy 50 rupees chips, but he will make sure he has a 50 rupees back. But as teachers, what we end up doing is we think they don't know subtraction. What they don't know is what they're doing in their daily life is called subtraction. So how can we connect our word subtraction to what they already know versus saying you open 100 fingers, close 50 fingers. Can I ask my kid, how do they know subtracting? And then I will say, okay, what you are doing is just called subtraction. So then language doesn't play a barrier in maths.
Thank you so much. There's another one which says, how can we help a child in middle school if the child has done rote learning throughout their primary section?
That's really difficult. Like, very honestly, like I've also been a middle school teacher and I've taught my kids. One of the difficult, I'll tell you what's difficult is because when we say that the kids have done rote learning, unfortunately, some of our kids have still not got the formulas or the concepts. So their basics also gets difficult. Sometimes in our system, kids are so attached to the answer that if you don't tell the correct answer in the correct way, they might not be feeling like what it is this. So I would say it's a slow and steady change, but when you will start doing by bringing in one question every day, you might be able to shift towards dynamic practice versus just thinking, oh, this is not happening, it will never happen. So if you don't do anything, it will not happen. They will go till 10th grade as well. I would just say what helps in middle school for these kids is if some kids who don't have, so you will see that kids are in 6th grade, they don't know division. Kids are in 8th grade, they don't know division. So these questions also give them an advantage to show their thinking by saying, okay, I don't know the term division, but I can still bucket these things into smaller groups or something like that.
Thank you, Akshay. Why kids in high class, even after relating the topic with real life, don't like mathematics? Can you suggest some way for this situation to get better? I'm guessing the question is more about liking mathematics and finding joy in it.
Okay, so that's a very big thing to say why someone likes maths or not. So I can just tell you, how can you make mathematics interesting? But I would not say I can force someone to like mathematics. Like, there are different subjects. Some people like history because of the fact that they love to know about backstory. So I would say my orientation would be, how do I make my maths classroom interesting? Now, I can make this webinar engaging. For the audience, it is up to them whether they like it or not like it. Like, I can't control someone to like my webinar or not like my webinar. So I would say, how can you make your maths interesting would be, how are you making engaging? How are you giving them the owners of making those decision making? And how are you making practice more fun and more relatable versus in my life, I see a tree, but when you say trigonometry tree, what I have to do it is in life also use that formula, right? So at the end, even if I'm relating to my life, I'm relating formula to the life. So how can you change that in higher order? This is one way it can change. I can't assure you your all kids will start learning math.
Great. This question has been partially asked before. How can we bring children from rote learning to dynamic practice? Why I'm asking this is because dynamic practice requires a lot of thinking as a learner. But since there are children who already have had practice in rote, how would you, like, what is the switch formula? It's the same as, I think, the primary to secondary.
So I feel there is no formula that the student needs. The formula is in teacher's mind. You need to believe that all your kids can do. So unless and until you think that my kids, irrespective of dynamic and rote learning, I would say just stop using the word wrong in mathematics. So once someone says, what is your approach? So let's say, Mansi, I ask you an approach. You gave me an approach, your answer is wrong. Let me acknowledge your approach. And then I ask Hafsa, she gives an approach. You can also see why did you come to a wrong answer, because the approach might be wrong. So I would never ever use the word, or you would have never seen me using the word, this is a wrong answer when people were writing in the webinars, because if I'm focusing on approaches, people can learn and make their, identify their own mistakes. So how do you give feedback becomes really, really important. So I think as a teacher, you need to just trust that whatever you are giving to your kids, all kids will at least try and will be able to do something. So I will not say someone giving a wrong answer saying he's not able to think. He's able to think, maybe his way of thinking is not what you want him to think in the right way.
Great. Thank you so much for that. 1 second. Yes. There's a question about can you suggest what should be the expected minimum learning outcomes for this year due to the impact of Corona and the limited academic? I know.
Okay. From my experience, what I've done, like I would say that I'm not qualified enough to say that this is the percentage of maths that would do, or this is the percentage that would be done. I would say that's something for your school, your board to decide. What I can keep and what I'm also focusing in Teach for India when I'm making those cuts is, can you at least make sure that your kids are practicing problem solving and have that orientation of problem solving, even if they're not scoring 40% and all, because they will start scoring. So I wouldn't have an answer to say that this is the right answer or this is something that you need to do cut off.
Thank you so much for that, Akshay. This has been a really engaging session. Thank you so much. We would like to thank Akshay for being generous with his time and expertise today. Akshay, if you could also share your experience of having done this webinar, what was this like?
Sure. First of all, thank you to the FIRCI team for giving me this opportunity. I feel like this is the first time I'm doing a webinar, and I feel like it was a really, really good experience for me in terms of the support also. I think like we also using the webinar to, like, this is the first time I as a individual am using this, and I'm also know that FIRCI team is also using it. So I feel like the support I had, and with that also we were able to get engagement from the group. So I'm highly grateful to people who were active in the chat, who were coming off mute. So I think like it's a great experience. At no way I felt like I'm just facilitating on blank screen. I always thought that I'm facilitating to a group of people who are actively there in person. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Thank you. By the way, the first 20 minutes felt like a real math class. It was amazing. The amount of chat answers that we've had were, the engagement was fantastic. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you to all the participants as well for being so active and engaged throughout the webinar. Our next webinar is scheduled to take place on Jan 29 on effectively measuring student learning with TagHive. So please keep looking for our emails in your inboxes from FIRCI. Before you leave, please take a minute to give us feedback on your learning experience on our webinar today. This helps us grow and make our webinars better. To reach out to our speaker after, the form is pasted in the chat window. To reach out to our speakers after the webinar, write to akshay.arora@teachforindia.org. Again, this information is pasted in the chat window. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Akshay. We hope you have a great evening.
Sure.